So the person competent to transfer, section 7. The basic thing behind this is that any person who is competent to do the contract under the Contract Act, section 11 of the Contract Act, will be competent here also. And section 11 is saying the person must be major, sound mind, not disqualified from contracting, and age of majority is given in section 3 of the Indian Majority Act 1875, and that is saying 18 years. That is saying 18 years. One exception is here in case of majority to do the contract. That is if the child upbrings under the Guardianship and Bards Act. Under the Guardianship and Bards Act or Minority and Bards Act, then the age of majority is 21 years. If child upbrings in the guardianship of someone on the order of the court as a bard, then the age of majority is 21 years. Otherwise, in case of natural upbringing, the age of majority is 18 years. And for the sound mind, the person must be sound mind at the time of contract. Not disqualified from contracting means sometimes he declared by the court insolvent on a particular property. If any person is declared unsound mind or incompetent or insolvent by the court, then this person is incompetent to do the contract for this particular property on which he is declared insolvent. Not getting the point. So suppose any person having any property and declared bankrupt and court declared insolvent, then for this property he is incompetent to do the contract. Okay. And person must have the right to transfer the property. Right to transfer the property. Means I am competent to the contract, but I do not having the title or authority over the property. Then how can I will transfer the property? So to transfer the property, I must have some title or rights or authority to transfer. And the next thing is property must be transferable as per section 6. We already discussed in section 6 that what type of property are transferable and what type of property are not transferable. So the property must be transferable under section 6, or must have the authority to dispose the transferable property. The property can be transferred absolutely or conditionally. If all the incident with the properties are transferring, means it's an absolute, or having a right to transfer means having the absolute right to transfer. And in second case, the where the grant does not carry with it all the legal incidents, but having some restrictions, it is said to be conditional or restricted transfer. Suppose I having a right and it is modified by the contract. So I do not having the absolute right. That is why I cannot transfer the absolute right. Absolute right can be transferred only by the person who having the absolute right. If I do not have the right, then how can I transfer? Or suppose I have the absolute right, but I am transferring with the modifications or with some restrictions, then it's a conditional transfer. Or when I am transferring my whole rights, these are the absolute transfer. Next, the transfer must be allowed by the law in India. So if any law is restricting, then I can't transfer. Like tobacco, in every case, tobacco is not transferable. Or lot of drugs are here. I am a owner of that drugs. I am a owner of a gun, but I can't transfer it because the law is not permitting me to transfer it. That is why now it is not transferable. Now, operation of transfer. That is also very important section. Section 8. Operation of transfer. See, the first thing, operation of transfer means in incidents what would be transfer with the things. So the things, those are attached, is the package with the things. So first requirement is this, that we can do the contract, and in that contract we will mention that what type of right we are transferring and what we are not transferring. So unless otherwise different intention is shown there, in default, when we are using the word what should be transferred with the default or within default, like if the property is land, the easement right, right to get the rent, right to get the profits, or all things attached to the earth. And all things attached to the earth.
प्रॉपर्टी के साथ में
तो लैंड है ना, प्रॉपर्टी नहीं, लैंड है, तो इस लैंड के साथ जो भी अटैच्ड है, these all will be transferred with that. अगर आपने लिखा नहीं तो, आपने लिख दिया है तो बात अलग है. Now where the property is machinery, in local language we can say that if the property is mill or machinery attached to the earth, then all mobile parts of that mill or machinery, all mobile parts of the mill or machinery where the property is house, easement right, rent accruing after the transfer, locks after the transfer, accruing after the transfer. So whatever are the area, transferor having the right to get the arrears, but from the day of transfer, right will be transferred with the transferee. Locks, keys, bars, doors, windows, and all of the things provided for permanent use therewith. Like someone is selling you their own house. So all the things like geyser, like motor, water pump, fans, and decorative things, these all are in the package because you are selling the house. Otherwise, you had to mention that these things are not with this house. Otherwise, all will be transferred with this because you are selling the house. Okay. Now the next, where the property is dates, debts, or other actionable claim, then the securities thereof, therefore, but not the arrears of interest. If we are selling the dates or we are selling the actionable claim, we already discussed a lot of things that actionable claim, why we are covering here. So we are transferring the actionable claim or the debts. Then whatever the rent would be, whatever the security is deposited with that, but the arrears are not included. If you want to include the arrears, then have to mention especially. What we will presume that you solved only the dates along with the securities. But whatever was the area, if you are selling these arrears also, then have to mention specifically that arrears are included here. Okay? एरियर्स का मतलब है पुराने कर्जे जो बाकी हैं, जो पुराने ब्याज बाकी है, सो वो एरियर कहलाते हैं क्योंकि अभी बाकी है. सो दीज आर नॉट ट्रांसफर्ड विद दिस unless otherwise mentioned on the contract. Where the property is money or other property yielding income, where the property is money or any other form of property that is yielding the income, then the interest or income thereof accruing after transfer take effects. So money itself will yield the interest. So when you are selling the money, so on that money, whatever would be the interest will be transferred after the day of transfer, and that will transfer to the transferee. Now the transferee will be entitled to get the interest or whatever the yielding is on that property. Say, any problem on section 8? Nothing.
So section 7 का ना क्वेश्चन है कि प्रीपेमेंट का कि कंडीशनल ट्रांसफर
अभी वो section 7 का नहीं है. Now we are coming on section 9. वो सेक्शन 25 में है।
अभी जो हमने पढ़ा उससे ट्रांसफर बाय कंडीशन।
अरे भैया, आज के टाइम पर भी कोई राम पैदा हो गए, लेकिन उनका मतलब भगवान राम नहीं होते, सबके अलग अलग संदर्भ हैं। So, section 9, oral transfer. So the very interesting thing is here that the property can be transferred orally. Or in other words, we can say the property can be transferred without writing. So how is it possible? So the complete word is this, that the property can be transferred orally without writing in case where there is no requirement of law to be transferred in writing. If the law is saying, like the Registration Act is saying, like the Stamp Act is saying, that it must be registered, then the it must be registered, transfer in writing. Like we have a property of section 54 of this act. If the value of the property is 100 rupees or more, then it must be transferred with a registered deed. Simple mortgage of 100 or more rupees required the registered deed. Lease agreement of section 107 required a registered deed. Exchange of immobile property, if the value of the immobile property is 100 or more rupees, then transferable, then must be registered. Gift of the property under section 123, transfer of actionable claim under section 130, these all must be transferred by the registered deed. But we must have to read it or study it with Registration Act. And now the Registration Act is saying any property, any immobile property can be transferred only by the registered deed. So any immobile property of any price, it must be registered. It must be transferred with the registered deed. Otherwise, they will not acknowledge it. Okay. Now section 10. आप लोग अगर कहें तो हम छुट्टी भी कर सकते हैं.